Hello, I'm Pete Torriello.
And I'm Maureen Torriello.
Welcome to the Sonic Boomers Podcast, episode 95. We have a lot of feedback.
It's so exciting, and I can't wait to share with everybody, but you're going to have to tune in to the last minute of this podcast.
Right, listen to the whole thing because we have a lot of responses from our listeners on today's question.
Yes, which was,
which concerts, I guess rock concerts.
Well, any concert.
Any kind of a concert. Have you seen live, not on TV, but you've been there live? Who was your first? Because you always remembered your first. Also, who did you like? Who disappointed you? And I think the question is there anything on your bucket list that you want to see? Mm-hmm. So that's the topic of our show this week. Before that, though, on the last podcast, we were talking about helicopter parenting.
Yes.
And you found an interesting TV show on Netflix.
Oh, yes, I did. It's called Old Enough, and it's filmed over in Japan. And what's very interesting to me is that they have taken helicopter parenting to the opposite extreme, where they have empowered their kids at a very young age, some as young as like 3 years old, to be totally independent. And this show chronicles kids going out on their first errand, where the parents have delegated them to go to a store, buy something for the family, and bring it home. And I'm not talking about a store on the same block or across the street. Some of these kids have to navigate through marketplaces and crossing busy streets and all that kind of stuff. And they do it and they succeed and the kids are affirmed. And it is a really interesting show. Now, I'm not sure I necessarily agree 100% with it, but it certainly gives a flip side to the helicopter parenting paradigm. And I encourage you to watch at least a few episodes of it, and the kids are adorable.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
You know, these kids are really something else, and they do it in the style of there's a narrator who is like kind of telling you sometimes a little bit sarcastically what the kid is thinking. Yeah. You know, like the kid's walking down the street. Oh, wait a minute, here's a puppy. I think I'm going to stop and pet him. You know, the milk can wait, you know. And it's just an adorable show.
It's an adorable show, and it is a other side of the coin for those parents who cannot seem to let their kids ride their bikes more than 2 houses in either direction from home because they're afraid that something will happen.
Right.
So we encourage you to check it out, and it's called Old Enough.
Old Enough.
On Netflix. Okay. Now let's take a look at, you and I made lists of the artists and the bands that we've seen.
Right. And a lot of them, of course, we saw together, so they're going to be the same.
Yeah, yeah.
But what was the first concert that you ever went to? Let's start with that.
The first concert I went to was Glenn Campbell at the Garden State Art Center in Homedale when I was in Cub Scouts.
Oh, wow. That's a neat trip.
We had a day trip, and they took us to the art center to see the show.
Wow, we never did anything like that in Girl Scouts. Yeah. My first one was to see David Cassidy at the art center. And while I liked David Cassidy at the time, Partridge Family was, you know, coming of age and everything, I got to go because my sister had a friend who wanted to go to the concert. And they were 3 years younger than I am. And the mother of this friend didn't want to be a helicopter parent and hover. She wanted to let them be able to go to the concert and, you know, as kids and not have a mommy with them. Mm-hmm. But she didn't feel 100% confident. So she embarked me as a chaperone, paid for my ticket, knowing that I was 3 years older and maybe a little bit more responsible, that I would kind of watch out for the kids. And she dropped us off at the art center, and she was there at the end to pick us up. And that's how I got to go to see David Cassidy.
I think the second concert that I went to was many years later, and that's when, before you and I met, and I went to see Judy Collins at the Garden State Arts Center. And when you and I went together, that was the second time that I had seen Judy Collins. Now, you and I have seen Judy Collins a number of times.
Yes, we have.
Over the years.
As a matter of fact, we kind of marked some of the milestones in our relationship. You know, that was our first real date, was to see Judy Collins.
Yes.
Then we saw her again after we were married. We saw her again after we were pregnant, or we had our first child. And we saw her more recently as senior citizen, should we say?
Yeah, yeah.
And so she's kind of been with us throughout many years.
I have to say, though, and one of the questions that we asked was, of all the artists that you've seen, which was the best and which was
disappointing?
The disappointing. Do you want to address that now, or do you want to save that for later in the show?
We can kind of weave it in.
Okay.
I think she was both. I think, you know, the early ones that we saw, she was some of the best concerts we saw. But the very last one that we saw, everybody was kind of like,
bummed
what?
out.
She performed, I don't think it was more than an hour, maybe 45 minutes even. It was
was at the SOPAC,
South Orange Performing Arts Center.
Right.
And she came out and she did, you know, a number of songs and everything, and she walked off, and everybody's assuming, okay, intermission. And we're waiting, and the lights come on, and that was it. There was no goodbye, folks, no encore, nothing. No. And she just got up,
did the last song, walked off the stage.
And that was that.
And we're all sitting there. Yeah. Everybody's sitting there.
It wasn't just us. Yeah.
And finally somebody from the SOPAC came out and said,
that's it, folks.
That's it, folks.
That's all, folks.
The show is over. So I don't know if something annoyed her, because, you know, she's very particular about everything. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if something like ticked her off and she just like, I'm done.
Yeah, I
don't know.
There was never any explanation. I never saw anything written up about it, you know. It just was very puzzling, and that was very disappointing. Because I mean, you know, and it wasn't a cheap ticket either. It wasn't. And you're paying good money, and you got like maybe 45-minute performance out of it.
People came out, and they were like, "What the f?"
Yeah.
You know, like, what was that all about?
Yeah.
And I remember your sister, God rest her, had been working at
she used to volunteer there
as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And she knew that we both liked Judy Collins. And she was like, well, let me tell you something about Judy Collins. Okay. Judy had said to us before one of her concerts, there are no encores. When I'm done, I'm done. When I do the last song, I'm heading home. That's it. I'm on the tour bus, or I'm in the limo. I'm out of here.
Right.
Don't ask for an encore. So, to me, that's not the Judy Collins that you and I
definitely not
in the 70s.
Yeah, so it's kind of sad that it evolved down.
But she's older now. You know, she was born 1939.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, cut Judy a little break.
Yeah.
But you know,
but if you want to know which one disappointed us,
that was
it was that one. Yeah. Sorry, Judy.
Yeah. You could always make it up to us by having another
and give us some free tickets.
Yes.
I think one that you and I will both agree that we loved, and we've seen him twice, and we would do it again, has got to be Roger McGuinn, right?
Absolutely. He brings so much stories and information. His concert is a whole package. It's not just him up there playing guitar singing. He's got stories, he's got anecdotes, he's very engaging, very charming, and he
likes to play small venues now.
Right.
Because remember this, I mean, when you talk about Roger McGuinn, you're talking about rock music royalty, you're talking about folk music royalty. This is the guy who played with the Byrds.
Right.
You know? And he plays smaller venues like the SOPAC, like we saw him at
Drew University.
And he likes these smaller venues, and he has a very intimate setting on the stage.
Yes.
With a carpet and some plants, and he sits there and he has his guitars, and he usually comes out and opens with My Back Pages. And he just weaves these wonderful stories about his life, his career, the music.
How songs came to be written.
Stories about working with Bob Dylan,
he's got so much experience, and he shares it so well. And the other thing that I really admire about him is that he has a love for this folk music.
Yes.
And he has made it his own mission to preserve as much as possible. And he and his wife travel, and they gather up as much of the songs and stuff that they can. And he actually made, I think it's a 3-disc set of the folk music of the ages, and he doesn't want it to disappear.
Right.
And that's kind of why he does these intimate settings, because it reenacts the kind of settings that you would have heard this music in originally.
He really is very gracious.
And yes, no celebrity about him,
He doesn't do the star thing.
Yeah, I mean, you got the feeling that you could just sit down with him next to him at a bar and share a beer or two and be perfectly at ease and comfortable and not all starstruck,
Now, what's interesting, too, is he tells you the story about his custom-made guitar.
Yes, because as a guitarist, I was watching him play, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's 7 strings on that guitar. I'm looking at the little knobs. I always have to look and see what brand they're playing. Because I always am on the lookout for the perfect guitar for me. And I look at it, I'm like, oh, I like the way that one sounds. What kind is it? And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, wait a minute. That's got more buttons on it than a 6-string. And I'm counting. I'm like, that's 7 strings. What? I never heard of a 7-string. 12-string, but I never heard of a 7-string. And he goes out and he explains that he added an extra G string, which, for those of you that don't play, it's right in the middle. And on a 12-string guitar, every string has a twin next to it.
Right, which is an octave higher.
Some are octave higher, some are the same.
No, I think they're all an octave higher.
No.
There's a low E, a high E, a low A, a high A.
No,
right?
no.
Well, I'm sure our friends who are guitar experts will
let us know.
Let us know very quickly.
No, the bassier strings are both low. They're not.
Really?
They're not like the higher end ones have a bass and a treble string.
That's
or
why
whatever.
you play guitar and I don't.
But at any rate, the ones that really count kind of are the ones towards the high end of the thing when you're playing the 12-string. Those are the ones you really hear the double on.
It's where you get the ring, the shimmer,
and the fullness of having the extra strings. And he said that the G was crucial. He could make a 6-string sound closer to a 12-string just by adding that one extra string. And he had it custom made. Martin made it for him custom, and it was so well received that Martin actually now manufactures one like that, because there was such a clamor for it after seeing Roger perform. A lot of the artists said, hey, I want one of those. And then it came down to the general public.
And then the other one that he plays, the electric guitar, is the Rickenbacker.
Right. And that's classic.
Yeah.
And you can hear that on when he does Turn, Turn, Turn and Mr. Tambourine Man. You'll hear that distinct sound.
If Roger McGuinn comes to your neighborhood, go. You do not want to miss this. You are looking at a living legend with an incredible story to tell and musicianship that will just blow you away.
Absolutely.
Now, I also saw, you don't remember this one.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you were with me or not. Burton Cummings.
Yeah, I think I was.
Remember, he had a song called Stand Tall.
Right.
He was the lead singer for the Guess Who, not the Who.
Right, the Guess Who. Yeah, I was with you. I just, when I was just jotting down who I could remember that we saw, because we've seen a lot of.
It was a good
artists.
concert, not particularly memorable. I wouldn't put it in the same category as Judy Collins' better shows or the Roger McGuinn.
No, but that was a surprise one, because if you remember right, at the time, you were working at a radio station that was closer to the shore, and quite often they would
get
would give us free tickets to the art center. So we saw a lot of artists that maybe were not on our must-see list. And this was kind of a surprise because, we knew who he was. It was like, okay, we'll go see him. And it actually was a very good concert. Like, it wasn't one of the top that I've ever had, but we were pleasantly surprised, and we came away with a new appreciation for him and his music. And I do remember that one.
Now, Linda Ronstadt, I am almost positive that I saw Linda Ronstadt. And I thought I saw her with you.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing her, so I don't know.
Because I remember that in her band was Waddy Wachtel, was he's a legendary guitarist, and Russ Kunkel, who is a legendary studio drummer, was on the drums.
Okay.
So I thought, wow, again, I'm looking at real royalty up there on the stage, but you don't have a recollection of it.
I don't recollect that at all.
Yeah.
So maybe it was that other girl you took.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that I saw her, though.
Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite artists is, it would be Simon and Garfunkel, but Paul Simon did a solo after they split. He actually did a solo at Walsh Gym at Seton Hall University.
Right.
And we got to see him there. And he's just dear to my heart. He could do no wrong. I know you have different feelings.
I know Artie may feel differently about that.
But no, I really enjoyed that one because that was somebody that I would have always liked to have seen. And little secret, I snuck into the gym because at the time our radio station WSOU was right next to the Walsh Gym in the same building.
Right.
So we were in the radio station. And there was a side door into Walsh Gym from the radio station that you didn't have to go through the general public's entrance. I snuck in early, put my coat and our coats on the front row seats, and walked out. And then went in later with the general public and claimed our seats. I got first front row seats that way. And you thought Maureen was, goody.
I kind of remember that concert, but I kind of remember being, it's like you with Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah.
Gee, I may have been there, maybe, you're saying that we were there together.
Yes.
I just don't have a particularly vivid memory of it.
Well, he was one of like the few first really big names that I saw, and then to see him up close like that was really meant something to me,
Now, we also saw, and again, you and I think were seeing different people at the time, but at Walsh Gym, they had Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the good Fleetwood Mac.
Right. I don't think Stevie Nicks was
earlier. No, there was no Stevie Nicks at that time. And, if Fleetwood Mac is anything, it's Stevie Nicks. Mm. And they were on, and they were kind of mediocre, I thought.
Yeah.
And they were like the lead show.
Of course, yeah.
The band that was on before them was called Triumvirate, I remember. And I thought they were great.
Yeah, everybody was really rocking with them, and then Fleetwood Mac came out, and you expected to take it up a notch, and it was kind of like, like your sound.
It was more like they were the warm up band, almost, and Triumvirate you thought was like the big act.
The good one, yeah. Also, Seton Hall used to get some really big names back in our day. I guess now they are priced them out of reach. Yeah. But I saw Chris Christopherson there. My freshman year at Seton Hall, he came, and I hardly knew who he was at that point, but we were playing a lot of him on WSOU, and it was, it was a big name coming, and everybody was going, and I went to see that, and I really enjoyed him and came to like him, collect his albums afterwards, and that was a good concert.
How about the Four Seasons? You and I went with our friends Mike and Linda to see the Four Seasons. And for some reason, I have it in my head that we've seen them twice, and I'm not sure.
I think we did.
I know we saw them at least once at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And that show was unbelievable.
Yes. And I think we saw them a second time. I think you're right. I'm not exactly sure whether it was Madison Square Garden or maybe the Meadowlands. I think one of the times, didn't we see him with Jay Black?
I don't know. We've seen Jay Black.
Yes.
and his sense of humor and his potty mouth. I don't know if he was on with the Four Seasons.
Okay,
for that show.
I might be mixing them up, but yeah, the Four Seasons put on a great show, and of course I love all their songs.
Yeah,
and they did not disappoint.
John Denver,
Yes.
you and I saw.
Yes, I liked him.
I'm like this. on
Well,
John Denver.
that you're looking at it back, but I mean, at the time, I really, really liked him.
Yeah.
And I liked the concert, and I loved, all his songs are very singable, very playable. I really enjoy messing around with them on my own, and to see him perform it was really great.
No, what I mean is that you're a bigger John Denver fan than I am.
Okay.
But it was a good show.
Yeah.
It was a good show. Remember, he had a stage that revolved.
Yes.
It would turn.
Yeah, so everybody got to see him.
Okay, we talked about Fleetwood Mac. Stevie Nicks, you and I saw together
Yes.
at the Meadowlands.
Was it
It
Meadowlands
was
or
at the
Madison
Meadowlands.
Square
Yeah,
Garden?
it was in the arena.
Right, right,
Fantastic show.
right.
And like every 2 songs, wardrobe change.
Yes. I did remember
Right?
that, yeah.
Every second song, she ran back and did a wardrobe change.
And her father was there that night, too, and she acknowledged him, and it was a really sweet moment.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Stevie Nicks, again, if you have the opportunity to see Stevie or to see Fleetwood Mac, you gotta go.
Definitely, definitely.
Don Moen, I put in.
I put him
now,
in, too.
Now, he's a Christian artist.
Yes.
We saw him at the Ritz Theater in Elizabeth,
Okay.
and we liked his music to begin with.
Yes.
On records. So we had an opportunity to see him. We went. We liked it. Now here's where I'm going to wave my finger a little bit.
Yes, and I think we're waving the same finger, but go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. I could have done without the proselytizing.
Yes.
I could have done without the preaching. I could have done without the altar call.
Yeah.
And didn't they have some priest there that
Yeah.
you knew?
Yes.
Oh, was it Bill Halbin?
Bill Halbing, yeah.
Yeah.
And he has become big in the charismatic movement circles. And
I don't even remember what he was talking about there.
just more come to Christ thing. And I don't mean to I'm saying that in a very offhanded way, and that's not the way I really feel about my religion or about God. But I feel like if you're going for a concert, you're going for a concert.
Going for a concert.
You're not going there for a church service.
Yeah.
If you're appearing as a evangelical church service, well then yes. But this was people buying tickets for a concert,
Yeah.
and I felt like that was really
Felt a little Shanghai.
it did, yeah. So but I do enjoy the music that he made.
We also went to see Seals and Crofts.
Okay. Yes.
Diamond Girl, Summer Breeze. Again, I thought it was a good show. Not outstanding, certainly not on a par with the Four Seasons or Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks. And again, Seals and Crofts were both very into the Baha'i faith. Now, I know nothing about the Baha'i faith. I just know that they were into it.
Right.
And they made references to it during the show. And then at the end of the show, they were like, hey, we're going to be hanging out on the stage after the show if anybody wants to come down and learn about the Baha'i faith. And of course, everybody was heading for the parking lot.
Yeah.
After the final curtain call.
I'm surprised people
everybody's
didn't go
heading for
down and just hound him for autographs, though.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think that they just wanted out of there by then.
Yeah, and I thought that show was a little disappointing because you tried to shove a little faith in there, and there's nothing wrong with faith, believe us, but not when you're paying good money for a ticket.
For a concert, you know.
So they were okay, but
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, I hardly remembered that we saw him until you brought it up, and I was like, oh, yeah.
remember I couldn't remember who we saw.
Right.
Because I thought it was Brewer and Shipley.
Right.
And I said no. And then I thought it was Loggins and Messina because a lot of those groups kind of
Hung out together.
well, I don't know if they hung out
Well,
together,
I mean,
but they kind of you can almost switch one for the other.
Right.
And then I said, well, no, I know that they were into the Baha'i faith because I remember that
Yeah.
specifically. Then when I looked it up, it came up as Brewer, Seals and Crofts.
Crofts,
Seals
yeah.
and Crofts.
Yeah.
And so that's how I actually pulled it out.
Right. And while we're on these religious-based concerts, we saw Casting Crowns a few times.
Yes.
And I really like them.
Oh, they're great.
And their music, is on the contemporary Christian scene, and that's the themes throughout. But they did not do the proselytizing much. I mean,
no,
maybe a few little maybe references here and there, but I think that they carried it off the right way.
Yeah.
Don't
do an altar call. And I get it. You're a Christian group. You want to promote Christianity or whatever faith it is that you're into, but that's not what people are paying money for the ticket for.
Right.
And you kind of make people feel uncomfortable and ill at ease when you do that.
Right. So I think, but I did enjoy seeing them. I saw them in several different venues. We saw them in the Meadowlands. We saw them in Newark at the Chicago Bears Stadium, the Newark Bears, the minor league baseball stadium, and enjoyed them very much.
Now, we told you to make sure to be listening for the latter part of the show, because we actually received a lot of responses from various people checking in about concerts that they've seen.
Right. And there's just one other one I meant to mention.
Okay.
And surprisingly, under the worst category, I saw Frank Sinatra.
Oh, that's right, because I got tickets for you and your mom to go, because your mom always wanted to see Old Blue Eyes.
She was enamored with him, and so she wasn't going to go alone, so you got me the tickets for both of us to go. And I was excited because, I wasn't a Sinatra fan per se. Yeah, he's a bigger in life name.
The biggest maybe at one time.
And so it was exciting to know that you were going to see someone of that magnitude. And he should not have been performing at that point. Yeah. He was past his prime, and he forgot the words to the songs, and he would kind of mumble, and he kind of got lost and repeated things that shouldn't have been, and it was kind of pathetic. But appearing with him was Steve and Edie Gourmet, and they were fantastic.
I don't think Steve and Edie ever got the props that they deserved, because they were both fabulous singers.
Yeah, and they did a wonderful job. And again, I didn't go to see them. I went to see Sinatra, but they were the redeeming factor of that concert.
Yeah.
And, it's sad. I kind of felt bad for Sinatra that, he didn't know when to quit, I think. It's really what
a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
He was a big whiskey drinker and a heavy smoker. And the combination of the two ultimately are going to do your voice in.
But it wasn't even his voice. His voice was okay. It was fine. It was just that he couldn't focus. He couldn't remember lyrics.
Yeah.
He was coming in at the wrong time, coming in too late. The band had a vamp behind him to cover it up, and it was just really very. If you saw him, you'd think he was an amateur, not the ultimate professional that he was.
I think to me, one of the signs that a singer is on the downside of the curve is when they stop singing and they start shouting. I like Jimmy Buffett, but now you see more and more when he does a concert, it's not nibbling on sponge cake, it's nibbling on sponge cake.
Yeah.
Watching the sun bake.
Yeah.
And to me, that's look, either you're going to sing the song or you're going to recite it.
Yeah.
I would prefer to hear you sing it.
Yeah.
Because that's what I paid for. And to me, when a singer starts doing that, to me, it's like you're coming down the other side of the curve. The other thing, and I hate this, I know you do, is when they're singing the song and they take the microphone and they point it out to the audience.
Now, I love that.
And they stop singing. And Neil Diamond, who I cannot stand, because he never does a song as well, and I know we're going to get mail about this, I don't think he ever does a song as well on stage in a live concert as he does in the studio.
Yeah.
Because in the studio, you have a producer sitting there who says, do it this way. Okay? You're under contract with us. We are trying to sell this record. Do it this way. Sing the line this way. And when he's out there on stage, he does his own thing, and I just don't think he's as good. And he's the one who'll be, Sweet Caroline, and puts the mic out. Right? Good times never seem so good.
So good.
I hate that.
And I love it. I love it. I don't want them to do all their songs that way. I want to be able to hear them, but to have the audience participation and you're into it, you're singing along. I love it. That makes.
But you can do that without him pointing the mic to you.
Yeah, but it's. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
It's like you being up cantering in church and you give them the sign to sing.
Right.
That's our sign to sing.
How many years have I been cantering?
30.
A long time, right?
Yeah.
Never once in my cantering career have I taken the microphone and pointed it to the congregation.
No, because it's a different venue. It wouldn't be appropriate. But for when you're in there with, I don't know, 10,000 people singing along, that's your cue.
Maybe I'll do that next week on the responsorial psalm. I'll sing the response and I'll take the mic off the stand and point it to the congregation and go like this with my hand up to my ear like, let me hear you.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's get we're
into
half an hour
friend.
into the show, so we've got to get into these responses.
Through these. So, shall we alternate? How do you want to do this?
Yeah,
okay.
let's alternate.
Okay, our friend Frank said his number one favorite was Billy Joel. He loved any Madonna show, Rich Mullins, Elton John, Coldplay. And he said Simon and Garfunkel kind of sucked, but he saw it in Jersey, and he said it could have been the crowd.
Okay. I don't know what that has to do with them sucking, but...
Well, I mean, sometimes the crowd eggs you on or, affects you in such a way that you just kind of don't.
Okay. Ed out in Washington State says, first was Santana. Best was the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I've never seen, I've heard them.
I've heard them.
I've seen video.
They'd be good.
Probably incredible. Biggest disappointment, he says, was Chicago. Note for note off the album, he says.
Now, see, you would probably have liked that.
I would like that.
Yeah, because you don't like when they have live versions.
I don't like when you start bebopping and scatting off the album. No. Okay.
Okay, our friend Trish said her first live concert was Bobby Sherman. She said, I was 12 and it was at the Garden State Arts Center. She goes, luckily my taste changed quickly.
And Anita says, first concert, America at the Capitol Theater in Passaic. Best concert, so hard to determine. Elton John at Madison Square Garden, November 74. Billy Joel on the Glass Houses tour. Tony Bennett doing a benefit concert for WNEW in 87 at the Essex House.
Our friend Bob, Elton John, again, another mention for Elton. This one was at the Palladium in Manhattan. He said it was very scaled down and intimate, and to this day, one of the best concerts he's ever seen.
Jennifer says her first concert was NKOTB. New Kids on the Block at 10. The best concert was Ed Sheeran, Train, Pitbull. When I first saw this note, I thought it was a trained pitbull. Oh, really?
I'd go to see that.
A trained pitbull. Train, Pitbull. New Kids on the Block now as an adult versus when I was a kid. She says, I'm lucky to say that I have not been disappointed yet. And added later, Kid Bops, when had to literally carry her daughter to the far parking lot.
Yeah, she and our daughter Kim took their daughters to see Kid Bops.
Kid Bops,
they were into that.
Never heard of that.
It's a kiddie group. It's like the Wiggles or something,
Okay.
And they went, and the two girls, the daughters were like so young, and they petered out, and they ended up having to carry them on their back, and it was like that far parking lot at the art center. If you know,
It always is.
It's like that kind of was like the one that sucked for them.
We heard from Carrie.
Right.
Oh, right. That's yours.
Okay.
Carrie's yours. Good.
First concert, not my choice, was Squeeze with the Smithereens. Her sister had an extra ticket, and I was young. She dragged me along. My best concert actually was recently when hubby surprised me for my birthday this month by taking me to see Billy Joel. At 72, he rocked at Madison Square Garden. Absolutely my favorite concert attended. So another vote for Billy Joel.
Paul says, my first concert ever was Sonny and Cher.
Oh, I would love to have seen them.
I would have loved to have seen them at the Yale Bowl in New Haven. Best ever, Madonna in Miami. Most disappointing, he says, was seeing Maroon 5 at Madison Square Garden.
Okay. My friend Mark, first concert was Moody Blues when he was really young. And best, he said, so many candidates, but he saw Lollapalooza with Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and others. Absolutely great. He also saw Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth all together. And most recently, he saw a Norwegian band called Pom Poko. And that was, if not the best, certainly the most joyful show I've seen. Disappointments, I've seen a few pretty downs. Radiohead comes to mind. Not that well known, but I used to enjoy a band called the Ravenettes. Their live show was so bad, I can't even listen to them anymore.
Wow. Cindy says, not sure if it was my first, but I was able to see the Monkees in concert.
I would have loved to see them too.
Not disappointed at all. Didn't realize the concert was so loud being outside. To this day, not a fan of loud music.
Yeah, I'm not either. If it's too loud and it hurts.
Too loud, it hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Nikki, first concert, Elton John. Another vote for Elton. Best concert, any Bowie concert, even the little performances he did, like NBC's Today Show concert at the Rockefeller Plaza. Disappointed by Rita Coolidge.
Vicky says, first live concert, Stills and Young. I have to ask Vicky, what happened to Crosby and Nash?
Yeah.
Best concert, Journey, every single time. And she says, now I want to see them with Arnell, whoever that is, as the lead singer.
Okay.
Biggest disappointment, the Rolling Stones.
Wow.
And Foghat at JFK Stadium in 1977 for her birthday. I won't say. I won't say which birthday.
We won't have you doing the math.
But it was in Roman numerals. Foghat was awesome, she says. The Stones played for 40 minutes and sounded horrible.
Wow. Although it is hard to sound good when you're in those big stadiums, when you're outside, I think. You know, if you're like Yankee Stadium or something, you know, it's not the same as being in an enclosed venue where the sound can be controlled.
Okay.
You know. But anyway, Mary, our first concert was the Temptations. The Staples Singers opened for them at the Uris Theater in 74.
I think I would rather have seen the Staples Singers.
Okay. Best concert ever was Michael Franti as Spearhead at the Wellmont in 2019. Worst was the Beach Boys. Couldn't hear a thing back in 1976.
Isn't that something that people are going to some concerts by these Beach Boys, Rolling Stones, and saying it sucked?
Yeah. Well, I think some bands are studio performers and some are live performers, and it takes a unique talent to be able to bridge the gap between both and be well in both those venues.
Okay, Joe says, first concert was Daryl Hall and John Oates with my dad. He won free tickets from WPLJ. Best concert was Guns N' Roses with Soundgarden in the early 90s. Guns N' Roses continues to be my favorite band to this day. Biggest disappointment I have, a tie. It was Bon Jovi in the mid-2000s. Saw them back in the 80s. They were great, but by the mid-2000s, not so much. 2 would be Motley Crue about 4 years ago. Awful. I wanted my money back. I would like to see the Rolling Stones last time because, let's face it, no one knows how much longer they can tour. I mean, it's true. These guys are pushing 80.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They're going to be coming out on stage with walkers soon.
Right. Carol says Roy. Is it Roy Oberon or did she mean Orbison?
I think she means Orbison.
Okay, but anyway,
so I've never heard of a Roy Oberon.
Yeah, I was
Merle Oberon. Yes, Roy Oberon.
That's why I wasn't sure. Yeah. But anyway, either one was in Baltimore, Maryland, and that's all she said was just Roy Oberon. Our friend Joe, he says he doesn't remember his first concert because that's 55 or 60 years ago. And probably at the Steel Pier in Atlantic City, the Four Seasons. Yay, Four Seasons. Best concerts were Billy Joel and Elton John together at Giant Stadium. I would have liked to see that. Simon and Garfunkel with the Everly Brothers at Madison Square Garden. Dr. John, Joe Cocker, Leon Russell. Worst was probably Gordon Lightfoot at the Garden State Arts Center. Oh, he says it's a long story about that one.
Okay.
So we thank all our listeners for their fabulous amount of input. And
yeah, we really had a big response.
And I enjoyed reading every single one of them as they were coming in. It's like, oh, yeah. Oh, it's trivia
time. And I've got a question for you.
Okie dokie.
Let's see. Do I want to do... Yeah, I'm going to do this one, being that we've been talking about rock groups and concerts.
Yes.
Okay, you ready? Mm-hmm. What Frank Zappa backup group has... For those of you that are just listening to this podcast and not watching the video... You
missed the eye roll and the shrug of the shoulders.
The shrug of the shoulders. Well, you might have this. Okay. You might have this. What Frank Zappa backup group has seen more than 100 musicians come and go? Which means that Frank Zappa has got to be a big pain in the ass to work for. Frank Zappa and I know we have listeners that are shouting it out right now.
I'm sure they are. I have no idea. I'm not even going to try.
The Mothers of Invention. You never heard of Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention?
I've heard of it, but it's just a name to me. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
All right. Should I zap you with a really bad one that you won't get, or should I just be nice and pick the one I was going to pick?
Do whatever you want.
I'll be nice. Okay, this is RPM. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and I know you like flip sides, so what was on the flip side of Hound Dog?
The flip side of Hound Dog?
Yes, Elvis Presley.
I'm wondering if this is what they call a double A side, where you had a hit on each side of the record. How about Love Me Tender?
No, but it's a good guess. It's Don't Be Cruel.
Oh, okay. So it was a double A.
It was a double A. I had my fingers and toes were crossed on that one that you get it wrong. So that was the answer.
Wow. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Sonic Boomers podcast. Again, we want to thank all of the people who wrote in to participate. You can write to Maureen and I at thesonicboomers@AOL.com. Remember, you can watch us on YouTube, and you can hear us just about anywhere where you can find podcasts, like Spotify and Anchor.fm and iHeart and all of those
the big
platforms.
ones. And one other thing, as we ride around the Jersey area in our white SUV, look for the Sonic Boomers sign on the door. We have a magnetic sign with a Sonic Boomers logo, and honk to us and we'll wave.
Yep.
And that'll make your day.
Don't throw anything at us. Until next time, I'm Pete Torriello.
And I'm Maureen Torriello.
Now go out and make some noise and go to a concert.